Mr. Speaker, I'm pleased to support H.R. 4324, which is a common-sense piece of legislation sponsored by my good friend and fellow Texan, Mr. Williams. His work as a member of the Financial Services Committee and as Vice Chairman of our Monetary Policy and Trade Subcommittee has been invaluable. Mr. Chairman, as our colleagues know, under the Iran nuclear deal, also known as the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, or JCPOA, the Obama administration committed the U.S. to license the sale of aircraft to Iran. Mr. Speaker, the House is not in order.
The House will be in order. Please take your conversations off the House floor. The gentleman is recognized.
In addition to authorizing the sales, these licenses have authorized banks to engage in financing, even though Iran remains classified by the Treasury Department as a jurisdiction of primary money laundering concern. On top of that, the State Department continues to label Iran as the world's foremost state sponsor of terrorism. And the recipient of these aircraft would be Iran Air, the state-owned airline that was sanctioned as recently as 2011 for supporting the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, which itself has been designated by the Trump administration as a terrorist organization. So, Mr. Speaker, so far so bad. And yet, while I and many of my colleagues from both sides of the aisle find these aircraft sales and their financing deeply disturbing, Mr. Williams' bill is about something far, far simpler. And all his bill would do is bring about the implications of the aircraft finance for Iran out into the sunlight. In other words, Mr. Speaker, it is a reporting requirement. Nothing more, nothing less. It would require Treasury. Mr. Speaker, the House is not in order.
Gentleman will suspend. The House will be in order. The gentleman may continue.
It would simply require Treasury to help Congress understand who is involved in these transactions. If it's an airline, has that airline stopped supporting terrorists or other sanctioned persons? If it's a bank, does that bank have the due diligence in place to guard against the immense illicit finance risk endemic to Iran? All this legislation does is have Treasury certify this information for Congress. And if Treasury can't make those certifications, it simply has to notify us what plans it has in response, even if it has no plans in response. So when we hear today from the other side of the aisle how this bill may impose new conditions on Iran or somehow stand in the way of commitments under the JCPOA, I suggest again everyone read the bill. It is simple. It is common sense. In fact, we should be considering this under the expedited process of the suspension calendar. This legislation provides, again, for a simple reporting requirement, Mr. Speaker. That's it, a reporting requirement. If my friends who oppose this bill don't care enough to even request the information from the executive branch, especially information that may reveal the use of their constituents' bank deposits for the benefit of enablers of terrorism, well, Mr. Speaker, that is a sad, sad day for congressional oversight and a sad day for the United States Congress. But there are people who have read the bill if everybody in this institution hasn't. People, for example, associated with the Foundation for Defense of Democracies, who wrote recently in November 22nd policy brief for the Foundation Center on Sanctions and Illicit Finance, quote, "The proposed bill supports Treasury's robust licensing approval process by codifying steps that are likely already central to the Department's evaluation process." They go on to write, Mr. Speaker, quote, "While not imposing any new standards for the approval of sales to Iran, codifying the existing standards in law through this bill makes the licensing process more transparent and gives the American people, through their elected representatives, a clearer picture of a significant component of the sanctions relief provided to Iran under the nuclear agreement." And I would ask unanimous consent to include this report in the record.
Without objection.
In closing, Mr. Chairman, the gentleman, my fellow Texan, has given all members an opportunity, no matter what their views on the JCPOA, the Iran nuclear deal, to simply support transparency and Congress's right to basic information. And I hope that my colleagues will seize that opportunity. And again, I want to thank Mr. Williams of Texas for his leadership and his excellent work, and I reserve